Greetings and welcome. You're tuned into TMH Daily English News. The headlines today: WFP's 20 truckloads of food is currently on their way to Ma'ala region. The Tigray war has taken a new turn, and the AFP photojournalist Yasuyoshi Chiba exhibits his Tigray photos in Tokyo and Osaka as well. As we move on to the main stories for today, the World Food Program has announced that 20 trucks loaded with food supplies are currently on their way into Tigray. This is the first time since mid-December when food aid seems set to reach Tigray. WFP said the trucks arrived in Erepti and will soon cross into Tigray, bringing in over 500 metric tons of urgently needed food and nutrition supplies for communities on the edge of starvation. Member of the Tigray Special Forces Central Command, Getachew Reda, confirmed the shipment and made it to the line of control of the Tigrayan forces, and that the convoy is now on its way to Ma'ala region. This is one of the good steps in the right direction. The bottom line, though, isn't about how many trucks are allowed in, but whether there's a system in place to ensure unfettered humanitarian access for the needy is provided, as Getachew underlined again on his official Twitter account. Writer and analyst Nati Yefru says Ethiopia's declaration of humanitarian truce and other earlier moves are PR exercises. In a panel discussion that also featured Professor Jatil Trumbull and Teklai Mikhail on News Central TV's Secure the Continent, Nati Yefru said the world now seems to be waking up to Abiy Ahmed's manipulative ways.
Well, first of all, TPLF-TDF is not in a position to give any concessions. They don't have prisoners that they held. They don't have much power in the rest of Ethiopia to give any concessions. Having said that, let's talk about political prisoners. In Ethiopia, they round up regular Tigrayans, people who live normal lives in the rest of Ethiopia. They round them up, they put them in concentration camps, and they show them that, look at, these are our POWs. I can't imagine any more human rights abuses than this. At the same time, whereas the Tigrayan government, they have thousands of POWs, and they just treat them as POWs should be treated. And this is one of the comparisons that I can give you. You say that there are certain political prisoners that have been released. Yes, that's true. That's a good thing. But most of the political prisoners that have been released, many of them were retired TPLF leaders who have who should not have been in prison to begin with. They're retired. They have absolutely nothing to do with the current TPLF. They just held them because they were famous. That was it. Iskander Naga is critic of the government. At the same time, is a very fervent supporter of this war. So releasing him actually is probably will galvanize the base who support this war for them to gain even more support. So what I'm trying to tell you is every change that they said that they have done is cosmetic. It's not serious. It's not sincere, and that's the problem.
So it doesn't go far enough. You think it's tokenistic? Yeah.
Exactly. It's not. They are very, very, very convinced that they can go on with these kinds of PR move forever. And the good thing is, it looks like that the international community is waking up to that. They're saying that just show me the beef, as we say here in the United States.
The Eritrean forces killed hundreds of people and displaced thousands from their homes in Gwale district of Tigray region in northern Ethiopia. Tesfa Zewdu is a resident of Fredashalem locality in Gwale district of Tigray region. He had also lived with gratitude and hoped seeing his children grow up to productive citizens. And on the 31st of December 2021, however, all his hopes were dashed when 3 of his sons were brutally executed in front of their house by Eritrean troops. Let's take a listen.
The soldiers fired from 5 to 9 shots on each of my sons. The eldest Alam, his younger brother Haddush and Fitzum, 3 of them fruits of my bloodline. Other 5 relatives and neighbors of mine were also killed in the same place. What is worse is, the Eritrean soldiers forbade us to bury bodies in the church. So we buried 8 bodies here.
The 31st of December 2021 was the fateful day after which I have never seen my brothers. Ma'aza Garwatzadik also lost her 2 sons, who were not only the breadwinners of the family, but were also active development agents within their community. She's now left with their photos to remind her of what and was once a source of her true happiness and now is currently gone forever.
The casualties range from 1-year-old child to 90-year-old. Religious leaders, women and girls, educated members of the community, farmers and civil servants. They destroyed and looted houses, farms, beehives and other properties. 5 health faculties, including 1 level, 1 hospital, were destroyed and their medical equipment and supplies were looted. The hospital used to provide service to help people of the district and beyond, including Eritreans themselves. As a result, these faculties are no more operational. 5 churches were also burnt down.
Administrator of Gwal Makda district, Berhut Agai, who we just listened to, said the invading Eritrean troops killed hundreds of people and displaced thousands from their home. Eritrean forces also still control vast territories of Tigray, more specifically western Tigray, and routinely carry out killings and lootings as well. Let's listen to Ma'aza Garwatzadik. They killed them all. I was kissing their bodies and covering them. It pains me to call each of their names, but they were all so educated. We buried them all here. The U.S. Institute of Peace says Ethiopia is currently on the trajectory of bringing a delicate opportunity to reduce a humanitarian disaster, and it adds, however, that the steps are extremely complex. According to Africa Affairs analyst Martin Plott, who had been odd skirmishes since December last year, have now taken the form of more serious fighting on the 2 fronts.
Since late December,
Bairu has more on this story compiled by Martin Plott.
Since late December last year, Tigrayan forces have mostly been inside the region. The withdrawal of their troops from the Amhara and Afar regions concluded by December 23, 2021. For the past 3 months, there has been a lull in most of the fighting, with strong suggestions of negotiations between the 2 sides overseen by the United States. Rashid Abdi, one of the best-known analysts in the Horn of Africa, was skeptical. Tigray Defense Forces stopped taking Addis because of the international pressure. TDF pulled out of Amhara, parts of Afar, in response to US, Kenya, and AU pressure. In return, Tigray got nothing, not 1 concession, Rashid wrote. Last week's limited ceasefire and promises of deliveries of aid were apparently the first outcome of this process. Ethiopia's government declared an immediate humanitarian truce with Tigrayan forces to allow aid into the besieged northern region where millions of people are facing starvation. This was confirmed by the Tigrayan government, which responded by calling for concrete steps to make these promises a reality. The World Food Programme today announced its 20 trucks started moving into Tigray after 1 week of no aid. Of course, the Afar route is the only way through to Tigray. The other routes are via the Amhara region, but these have been closed for many weeks. There is little sign that the Amhara will allow aid through to Tigray. The Amhara elite are furious with Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed for his negotiations with the Tigray leadership. This has led to the strengthening ties between Amhara leadership and Eritrea. It now appears that what has been odd skirmishes since December last year have now taken the form of more serious fighting on the two fronts. Apart from reports of fighting in neighboring Afar, there are also reports of fighting along the route from Humera to Sudan. Martin Plaut also referred to a link showing ENDF movement from around Gandawaha near Matamma, and claims of the Ethiopian army is neither retreating or redeploying its forces to border areas threatened by Tigrayan forces. At the same time, there have been credible reports of Ethiopian troops being sent by the busload towards Tigray. Some 230 buses have been seen with an estimated 18,000 soldiers on board. The Ethiopian government says these were no more than troop rotations. Others are not so sure. There have been credible social media reporting and rumors that the Amhara have been trying to move north through Adarkai in the last few days. Rashid Abdi suggests this as a part of a pattern. Abiy never tells truth, deception not tactical, it's strategic. I'm not surprised he wanted a humanitarian truce to camouflage his military plans. He just recently rearmed. He wants blood. Watch out for another Northern Command type of casus belli, he warned. In related news, the coalition forces of Ethiopian and Eritrean forces and their Amhara allies have suffered heavy defeat in the hands of Tigray forces in the days of fighting between Humera and Sudan. The Tigray forces foiled repeated attempts by Eritrean forces that sent divisions of reinforcements to the area. Unidentified number of Eritrean armed vehicles were destroyed in the encounter.
After 16 months, one of Africa's deadliest wars has yielded an opportunity to bring peace and build as Ethiopia's government and the Tigray armed forces have declared a truce to allow for humanitarian aid needed to prevent mass starvation and across the entire country's northeast. U.S. Institute of Peace urges Ethiopians and their supporters to seize the moment to consolidate a durable ceasefire to end blockages of humanitarian aid and assistance to come to an end. It said this effort should open a path to a broad national dialogue to set a shared vision for the Ethiopia's future, growth potential, as well as long-term stability. USIP noted the sobering reality is that this is an opportunity but an extremely delicate one. It added, while a truce is a declaration or pivotal, there's still no written agreement and there's need for a sequence of steps to reach a well-defined agreement, one that makes a difference in all of the people's and citizens' lives. Among the things required, confidence among the warring parties through concrete sustained steps, including opening humanitarian access into Tigray and Afar, letting displaced people return will be vital. Following up the monitoring by political and military leaders, communication to and compliance by security forces on the ground, establishing a robust third-party monitoring mechanism, as well as a cooperation by the political leaders and communities are also some of the steps outlined by USIP. Another key step is also securing the full buy-in from all sides, including the range of formal and informal security forces within Ethiopia's plus the cooperative of Eritrea, which has been involved in the war from the start. USIP stated that the support of international partners, including US, AU, China, and UAE, does not stop when the parties to the conflict get into the room or even sign an agreement. It stressed the partners will need to become guarantors as well as financial supporters of implementing the agreement with its security provisions and of stabilizing the economy. Analysts say there's a possibility that Eritrea is currently sabotaging the aid delivery into Tigray or even the peace negotiations with Ethiopia. William Davison, a senior Ethiopian analyst for the International Crisis Group, told Ditch as well that Eritrea might be playing a spoiler role as it does not want to see Tigray forces recover legitimacy as well as stand a part of the peace process. Timnit Bayru has more on this story by Ditch as well.
Ethiopia's Tigray region still waits for aid despite a government truce. Aid convoys have yet to reach the region a week after the government announced a humanitarian truce on March 24th. Convoys carrying much-needed humanitarian supplies to Ethiopia's northern Tigray region are still stuck in Samara, the capital of the neighboring Afar region. A humanitarian source in Afar who wishes to remain anonymous told Dolce Welle that there are still no convoys headed to north to Tigray. More than 700 trucks of supplies per week are currently needed in Tigray, where more than 6 million people are in urgent need of assistance. But not a single truck has entered the northern region over the past 3 months. Rather, trucks laden with aid have been stranded in Samara since mid-December, waiting for clearance to travel into the region. Leaders from Tigray said on Monday that they were temporarily ceasing hostilities. The federal government says that the aid trucks stuck in Samara since December are unable to leave because Tigrayan forces are blocking the route the trucks would take near Abala. The federal government said that the aid trucks stuck in Samara since December are unable to leave because Tigrayan forces are blocking the route the trucks would take near Abala. However, a humanitarian worker based in Addis Ababa told Deutsche Welle that fighting around Abala had obstructed aid for a few days only in January. He said that the main reason for the continued delays to the aid delivery are procedures of local Afar authorities and the security of aid convoys within Afar-controlled territory. Trucks carrying food to communities within Afar have been stopped and looted in recent weeks. The most recent attack was on a World Food Program convoy on March 20th. According to Deutsche Welle, Afar fighters may have targeted the trucks in the mistaken belief that the convoy was headed to Tigray when it was actually taking aid to Afar communities. Deutsche Welle added the attack on the aid convoy could have also been carried out by other organized groups wanting to sabotage aid delivery for peace negotiations. An important element is what role Eritrea is playing, both in terms of possibly creating the security situation that led to the Tigray occupation of parts of Afar and perhaps being behind some of the attacks on the aid convoy in Afar, said William Davidson, a senior Ethiopia analyst for the International Crisis Group. Davidson said there is a possibility that Eritrea is playing a spoiler role, as it does not want to see the Tigray forces recover legitimacy and standing as a part of a peace process. For a peace process to get off the ground, the federal government and its regional allies are going to have to actually allow the consistent delivery of sufficient aid into Tigray, Davidson said. Davidson stressed that announcing a unilateral truce with the stated intention of addressing the humanitarian situation needs to be matched by the action in order to have an effect on resolving the conflict. Eritrean forces have been fighting on the side of the Ethiopian government against Tigrayan forces ever since the conflict started in November 2020 and are accused of some of the most egregious human rights violations. In February, Tigrayan leaders accused Eritrean mercenaries of initiating violence in Afar, which borders Eritrea to the southeast. There have also been reports of increased cargo flights by the United Nations and the Red Cross since the government of the Prime Minister of Abiy Ahmed announced that there have also been reports of increased cargo flights by the United Nations and the Red Cross since the government of Abiy Ahmed announced the truce last Thursday. Airlifts carrying medicine and food supplies from the capital Addis Ababa to the regional capital Mekelle resumed in January, but cover only about 4% of the health needs on the ground, according to the UN's humanitarian agency, OCHA.
Civil society organizations in Tigray calls for unfettered access to humanitarian services to the people of Tigray. ACSOT, a consortium of 69 local civil society organizations, called on the international community to fulfill its obligations to ensure universal human rights as well as international humanitarian laws are respected. It also urged the international community to monitor the implementation of the humanitarian truce and work on the ending of the siege. It also called on the government of Ethiopia to take other complementary measures, including opening of public services such as banking and telecom services and allowing fuel supply into the region. ASCOT called on all parties to the conflict to avoid any further bloodshed and working for lasting peace. Our final update for today, AFP's photojournalist Yasuyoshi Chiba exhibits his Tigray photos in Tokyo and Osaka, Japan. Talhad Media reported the last of foreign journalists in Tigray, Yasuyoshi Chiba, who was in Ma'ala when the city was liberated by Tigray armed forces, exhibited 35 prints of original photographs from his time there. Ethiopian generals, who were embarrassed to admit their total defeat that they drove them out of Tigray, called for Chiba's photos of Ethiopian prisoners of war, photoshopped Ethiopian Great Run pictures. The exhibition, titled Arrivals, focuses on 4 arrivals and the arrival of refugees airstrike victims, triumphant TDF soldiers, and Ethiopian prisoners of war. The largest print, over 2 meters, shows detailed faces of people of war from the Ethiopian army as they march to the rehabilitation center. And the exhibition has a set of pictures shot in Mekelle city of Tigray capital and the Rakba refugee camp in eastern Sudan bordering Tigray from December of 2020. These are the last shoots by the foreign media before the Ethiopian government banned all foreign media coverage of the war in general. These powerful photographs expose the coordinated, state-led misinformation campaign by the Tigray genocide about the Tigray genocide. Mr. Chiba has worked at AFP for over a decade and is now based in Nairobi, now is the chief photographer of East Africa since 2017. He's won the top prize at the 2020 World Press Photos Awards and was recently named the Guardian's Agency of Photographer of the Year 2021. The Tigrayan community members in Japan, mostly students in Japanese top universities working in technology companies, have visited the exhibition and triggered emotions of homesickness as well as sadness. Many haven't heard from family members since the beginning of the war, and this is expected to help raise awareness among the Japanese public regarding the ongoing war on Tigray. And Japan is one of Ethiopia's major partners as well as donors for Ethiopia. That concludes our news for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.